Dear friends, we present to your attention a report on the topic Features of Introduction of Components of Gamification in the Course of Development of Constructive Strategies of Overcoming Youth Life Crisis. Open access to modern information technologies changes people's lives for the better, contributes to the transformation of the education system, increases productivity and competitiveness of any country in the world market. At the current stage of the development of informative society, there are main educational trends, including remote and mobile learning, more augmented reality, cloud LMS, personalization, big data, gamification, which can change not only the content of education, but also affect its quality undoubtedly. Gamification or gaming is expanding to all spheres of life. 5 educational trends that are reported by Forbes magazine: remote education, personalization, gamification, interactive textbooks, video game learning. 4 of them are gamification. Recently, global IT companies are working on gamification actively to improve existing educational platforms and to create new game training programs for use in open information and educational environment. According to the survey, the most active users of the gaming industry are young people under the age of 25. That is 72% of all respondents of different age. The relevance of the implementing of gamification elements into the higher education system is proved by the international project Game Hub, collaboration of universities and gaming industry enterprises in Ukraine, that is aimed to form Game Hub infrastructure in higher educational establishments in Ukraine. Project partners. It will give an opportunity to involve interesting people in learning and to improve required skills and competencies in the gaming industry. But the issue of the research of impact of innovative components of gamification on the mental characteristics and adaptive abilities of the individual remains quite extensive and uncovered. A number of issues related to the identification of the features of the use of modern simulation games for the development or simulation of certain mental functions raise the need to create a continuum of multidisciplinary research. The analysis of scientific sources revealed the main advantages of using gamification in the process of psychocorrectional and developmental impact on personal constructs. In contrast to traditional technologies, gamification has an entertaining aspect that helps to have high involvement in the educational process. Gamification is a helpful tool that increases cognitive activity and motivation. Gamification allows students to develop flexibility of mind in solving practice-oriented tasks. Gamification allows students to cooperate not only with each other, but also with the teacher to feel equal with him or her, which helps to remove psychological interaction barriers. Gamification creates a sense of competition, causes positive emotions. Gamification provides feedback. There is a feeling of excitement, curiosity is aroused. Gamification creates a spirit of competition which provides an opportunity to form constructive coping strategies of behavior in stressful situations and overcoming life. The research was conducted in the framework of joint research work of teachers and students, future psychologists and programmers, at the Laboratory of Health Psychology, Laboratory of Psychophysiological Research, and SIAM Laboratory. The interdisciplinary approach was implemented in the doing the research work at the expense of the general fund of the state budget, adaptive system for individualization and personalization of professional training of future professionals in blended learning. State registration number is 012-OU10-1970. A comprehensive interdisciplinary study was conducted in the framework of scientific cooperation between Xi'an Laboratory of Psychophysiological Research, and Laboratory of Health Psychology of Bogdan Khmelnytsky, Melitopol State Pedagogical University. The pilot study consisted of ascertaining and formative stages. Total sample was randomized and made by a stratification methods. There were 92 people included, future programmers and psychologists. According to the research objectives, the respondents were divided into control and experimental groups. No training sessions were conducted with respondents of control group. Specially organized corrective work was carried out with the responses of the experimental group. Individual and group forms of training work were used within the limits of personality's stress resistance development. The training included elements of traditional psychocorrectional work and gamification components with AR technologies. This study was conducted during 2019, early 2020. Let's consider each research stage in turn. The experiment, which was conducted in 3 stages. Ascertaining stage. Psychological diagnosis by methods with the help of computer complex HC psychotest and Google Forms. To identify strategies for overcoming life crises, we used the following techniques. Methodology, indicator of coping strategies by Amirhan, the coping strategy indicators. Questionnaire of the questionnaire type, how I overcame the crisis of life. The method of projective drawings was used as an auxiliary one. There was a given theme of drawings. I and the crisis. I'm coming out of the crisis. I'm after the crisis. A reflexive survey compiled by the authors using Google Forms provided an opportunity to summarize the subjective assessment of personal and behavioral changes of the respondents after experimental exposure. Forming stage. At the formative stage, we integrated traditional psychological training on the use of cognitive behavioral, relaxation, and case study techniques and the innovative opportunities of gamification components with AR technologies. The formative stage was carried out on the basis of Xi'an Laboratory. Statistical processing of experimental data includes calculations of measures of variability of results, correlation analysis, main Whitney discrepancy criteria. The ranking results show that there are age differences in the use of ways to overcome life crises. The main Whitney discrepancy criterion for the age groups 18-19 and 20-21 varies between 144 and 150 at p equal to 0.05. For the participants of older age 20-21, in contrast to younger ones, more significant and priority for the future use are ways to overcome life crises, which are connected with the activation of social connections and communication, including the professionals, as well as stress resistance, emotional stability, resilience, low anxiety, self-control, self-regulation, self-belief, self-esteem, and the use of creative activities and hobbies. In addition, younger students are more likely to choose crisis management mechanisms such as search activity and imagery in the future. And 20-21-year-olds are more likely to choose physical activity. Analysis of the results of ranking the ways of overcoming by girls and boys showed that, in general, there is no statistically significant difference between girls and boys. However, there are differences in the use of certain methods in future. Girls are more often than boys tend to choose in the future such ways of overcoming crises as the use of imagery, emotional reactions, as well as relaxation, meditation, breathing exercises, etc. And boys choose a logical search for causes and increase self-esteem. In general, it should be noted that adolescence is characterized by the desire to seek help and support from the close environment, that the young person trusts more both parents, loved ones, friends, and so on. Boys and girls show a desire to keep away from strangers, including professionals. Relevant empirical data are on the basis for the implementation of the formative stage of the research. At the formative stage, we integrated traditional psychological training on the use of cognitive behavioral, relaxation, and case study techniques and the innovative opportunities of gamification components with AR/VR technologies. The formative stage was carried out on the basis of STIAM laboratory. The following game technologies were recommended for the purpose of introduction of game simulators. The following Google Play applications were used within each corresponding training block. Number 1. Development of cognitive sphere of personality. Mind games is a collection of amazing educational games based on the principles of cognitive psychology and aimed to develop mental abilities. The application includes more than 24 educational games. This game trains concentration, reaction speed, memory, flexibility of thinking. Left versus right, brain games for brain training, is a game designed to check awareness, adaptability, reflection, prudence, accuracy, and patience. Stimulates the development of interspheric interaction of the brain. Neuronation is a set of 27 interesting games, exercises, and personalized courses that stimulate the development of intelligence, memory, and logical thinking, increase volume and concentration of attention. Lumosity is a set of 25 cognitive games that stimulate development of cognitive and motivational sphere of personality. Brain games is an interesting brain simulator which consists of various games. Games for memory development, thinking, cognitive games, intelligence games, attentiveness games. An application with simulator games develops the mind, abilities, strengthens cognitive connections, expands consciousness, increases attentiveness, trains memory, adjusts the mental process. Number 2. Development of emotional and volitional sphere. Emoji puzzle is an imagination game in which you need to match pairs of emotions with associations. It stimulates the development of emotional competence. Harmony is a puzzle game that combines art therapy technology, music therapy, and an exciting gameplay. Anti-stress or relaxing simulation game is the collection of simulation games which helps to relax or switch attention temporarily. In this game, you can listen to a bamboo bell, play with wooden cubes, move your finger on the water, press buttons, draw with chalk, and so on. Number 3. Development of the behavioral sphere. Easy game are the game simulators presented in the application which provide an opportunity to make decisions based on the cognitive abilities of the individual in difficult life situations and situations that require quick choices. Virtual High School Teacher 3D is a simulator game which simulates the development of constructive behavioral strategies in professional activities. Homescapes is a simulator game focused on the development of constructive behavioral strategies in overcoming stressful life situations. We used rare diagnostic data as a criteria for assessing the effectiveness of the training and the changes that occurred with the respondents using the method of indicator of coping strategies by Amirhan. The procedure for ranking the ways to overcome life crises and a questionnaire on changes that occurred after the training. Indicators of the experimental and control groups were compared with each other. Statistically significant differences between them were analyzed by the criterion of Mann-Whitney differences. Representatives of the experimental group who underwent active training with the use of gamification elements and AR/VR technologies, in contrast to the control group, which did not undergo training, showed significant changes in the choice of strategies to overcome everyday difficulties. Only 3 people from the experimental group chose, as before the training, an avoidance strategy, and the vast majority implement new active methods of overcoming. The vast majority of the control group did not change their strategies for solving daily problems. The Mann-Whitney test shows statistically significant differences between the results of the experimental and control groups. 164 at p, which is equal 0.05. As a result of the re-ranking of coping techniques according to the criteria, it is important for me, and I will use it in the future, out of 25 representatives of the experimental group, 7 of them showed a coincidence of sets of coping methods that are important to them, and they will use in the future. This is an indicator of a high level of awareness of these methods and their acceptance. That is, these subjects significantly improved their results and were assigned by us to the group with a high level of acceptance of ways to overcome life crises. 5 young people from the experimental group, according to the ranking, showed a result identical to the one they demonstrated before the training. 2 people remained in the group confused, and 3 got to the group low level of acceptance of ways to overcome. Perhaps the positive changes in these subjects would be more pronounced if they had the opportunity to receive additional training in the formation of practical skills of choice and application of possible ways to overcome life crises. In contrast to the experimental group, most of the control group, 21 people, did not change their level of acceptance of crisis management techniques. Only 2 people were able to improve their previous result and showed a high level. The differences between the control and experimental groups are statistically significant. The Mann-Whitney test is equal to 161 at the significance level of p, which is equal to 0.05. According to the results of the survey, the vast majority of respondents noted and named specific changes that they were able to notice in themselves, their own behavior. The results presented in the table show that the vast majority of the experimental group named the changes that took place in themselves, the experience and skills of self-regulation of emotions, which in our opinion also indicates the effectiveness of the training programs with elements of gamification. In the course of our interdisciplinary research, we made assumptions about the effective possibilities of implementing the components of gamification in the process of forming a constructive strategy for overcoming life crises of modern youth in the current conditions of pandemic constraints on individual life. Our research aimed at the implementation of an integrative approach in the development of future specialists' stress resistance. Choosing constructive strategies for overcoming life crises has turned out to be a very vital and important one. This research shows an innovative combination of traditional psychodiagnostics and corrective influences with a gamification of components and AR/VR technologies. This research was conducted within the framework of the cooperation of laboratories: Laboratory of Psychophysiological Research, Laboratory of Health Psychology, and STIAM Laboratory. At the methodological level of the research, we have analyzed and substantiated the ways of combining traditional methods with gamification components and AR/VR technologies, and the model of development of constructive strategies for overcoming life crises. At the empirical level, the effectiveness of implementing gamification components and AR/VR technologies into the process of stress resistance development as an integrative feature of future specialists that directly influences productivity and efficiency of the future activity has been proved. The perspectives for further research are the following: development of the concept of the purposeful use of gamification components and AR/VR technologies while constructing an effective personality-oriented vector of higher education. Research of the impact of gamification on a person's mental. Thank you for your attention.